Hi, and welcome back to Till Death Do Us Watch Party. Anyways, this week we watched The Legend of Vox Machina, Season 2, Episode 6, Into Rimecleft. And this time we immediately are given a gory sight as Grog is slaughtering what appears to be an arena full of people. It's just a bloody massacre. Completely out of nowhere, it feels like, but hey, he's thriving, Craven's Edge thriving, and I think this is now actually the legend of Craven's Edge because he seems to be the central star in this particular moment. And then Grog goes into one of his berserker rages, and he looks around and all of his friends are dead around him. And then he wakes up in a cold sweat as the nightmare is over.
Dun dun dun.
Clearly, Craven's Edge is talking to him even while he sleeps now, because you even can hear the sword kind of going, "I hunger," in the background as he wakes up. So he's not getting any respite from the blade at this point. And then it's also just really cold because they're still just trekking through like this northern area full of snow, and it's really starting to I think impact a lot of the people. Everybody is cold. Both the twins. Percy does give up his jacket, though, to Vex.
And then immediately has the look on his face like, I think I just fucked up. So.
Yes and no. That's an important note of that moment is more than just him being a gentleman. And I think you're going to see some more things to come of that regard.
Okay.
That moment stood out to me, which is why I brought it up. But in the background, you also see Pike and Scanlan continuing to kind of discuss Craven's Edge behind Grog's back. But Scanlan is kind of dismissive, and Pike's like, no, it looks really bad. And when she tries to talk to Grog, he immediately kind of like changes the subject and baby Bjorn Scanlan to give him heat.
Well, Pike did say something like, don't you think Grog's kind of acting weird? And like, Scanlan was like, well, Grog's kind of dumb.
Yeah, like I said.
And just kind of writes it off at that. So, but yeah, I thought that part was kind of amusing. But
yes, and baby Bjorn, and he got the anime lines on his eyes, like, that one was a particularly kind of funny little moment. But they're trekking on. They're looking for a vision that Vax saw in one of his images from the Raven Queen of where to go next. So they're kind of getting multiple high-level beings that are kind of guiding them along, because they've had the first Sphinx, now they have the Matron of Ravens, and now they're trying to find the Sphinx's mate, so presumably a second Sphinx. When they come across a pillar, it has a warning to stay away. There's danger. It seems to be written in some sort of old language that Percy is able to read. And Percy was a big book nerd before the Briarwoods destroyed his home and his childhood. So he knows like Elven and Celestial and other kind of like very weird languages.
is he a polyglot?
I don't think they have polyglot, but I think because, and this is kind of getting into some D&D rules, is in 5e, you really only get like one or two languages, maybe depending upon your background. But in a lot of like Pathfinder and 3.5, normally you got the amount of languages equal to your intelligence modifier. And Percy had a pretty high intelligence modifier, so he got, and I think because of his background being a nobleman son and everything, he asked Matt to have some more stylized languages his character may have studied, because it would be like appropriate for a nobleman's son to know Elven, but it would also be appropriate for him maybe to have studied the language of the religion, Celestial and whatnot. So
That's the one thing I do miss. 3.5, I still love it. I know that Pathfinder, or as Mathfinder, is very crunchy, and there's a lot going on and a lot to remember. But that is the one thing I do miss about the old rules of the intelligence when you played the sorcerer and the bonus spells, because your character had like certain intelligence scores, or like getting the additional languages and stuff like that.
yeah,
And now it's your character's intelligence, so your spells are like harder to resist and stuff like that. I get the exchange, but like I do miss it.
Yeah, no, there's a place for it, but yeah, Percy reads it. Vex hops on her new broom, scouts, and manages to make a very good spot check, and spots basically an illusionary door. She leads the party there. They doubt that it's really a door, but it turns to be illusion because she could just stick her hand right in. They all enter into this spacious cavern that appears to be some sort of ruins to a temple that, according to what they said in the episode, predated the Calamity. So it's a very old temple. And they do, in fact, encounter a sphinx. His name was Kamal Giori. And Kamal Giori gives them three... He understands that Ossysa sent them to him, so he could tell them about the vestiges and help them find more. But because he's a sphinx, he can't just do that. He has to give them a task first.
Sphinxes gotta always fuck with people.
Yeah. So, I mean, he gave them at least some options. He gave them... They could fight 70 death gorgons.
Ooh, that sounds badass.
Yeah. They could navigate the endless labyrinth of misery.
That's right out.
Yeah. Or they can inflict a single wound upon him. So, of course, they feel like that's probably the easiest, even though, was it Pike? Or Pike, I believe, brought up, is like, he's really old. Do we really think that if he's lived this long and hasn't felt pain, that this will be an easy task?
Yeah. and that, I mean, that's the thing, though, right? If he's lived this long and he does not know what pain is.
Yeah.
Just put a wound on me. It's like, let me fight the orcs, or the
Death Gorgons.
Death Gorgons.
Death Gorgons.
Yeah, I mean, I was with Grog on that one. I was like, okay, the endless misery, fight something that doesn't know what pain is, which that blew my mind when he said that. I was like, you've never stubbed your toe?
Yeah.
You know, like nothing has ever happened to you?
I think Scanlan even brought up a stubbed toe.
Yeah, like it's something had to happen. But,
So they do decide, we're going to go with the inflict a wound on the ancient creature. And Kamal Giori was just like, the Death Gorgons were so looking forward to the fight, which I like that little throwaway line.
They were feeling restless or something like that.
Yeah, I like that. There's some good humor with the voice acting with Kamal Giori. So then they go through basically a montage of everybody attempting to land a hit unsuccessfully on this Sphinx.
So the arena they were fighting in was definitely some Dragon Ball Z shit. Like things floating, an arena floating in space that was like ring out, you know, till one of you knocks each other out or ring out.
Yeah.
That was definitely some DBZ stuff. The other thing is this is the second instance of what seemed like a near party wipe.
Yeah.
So I don't know what the pacing is of the show between the show and the cartoon, but in episode 4, you had a near party wipe that was backed up again by a near party wipe. So it's like, stop doing that. Your characters are not going to feel strong or powerful.
So in the show, in the campaign live stream, they did not have to do one of those 3 tasks. They had a riddle to solve. They had a puzzle to solve.
Okay.
And that would not translate well. So this is why it kind of got changed up. And it, again, going back to what you've mentioned recently, it's giving another character a moment to shine in the moment. So everybody except for Scanlan has been yeeted off of this arena.
Which I will also say is that they were going in turns, and then when it got down to the last 4, 3 of them were like, "Fuck it, let's attack them all at the same time." And he was still kind of like, he was still amused by that.
Yes, he found great joy in their attempts, and I feel like might have been a slight bit of remorse. It's like, they didn't succeed. Oh well.
Yeah, and then when it came down to Scanlan, he's like, if I hide behind this column, maybe they won't see me. And then he blasts the column, and he's like, fuck.
Yeah. So and then Scanlan decides to do what only Scanlan can do, and he decides to sing a touching, sweet love ballad, effectively. It kind of harkened back to some 80s power ballads a little bit. I absolutely loved that song. I thought
brilliant.
It was beautiful. it scores that critical hit. It's as I'm calling it, a song of wounding, and Kamal Giori starts to cry, and then echoes that, you have wounded me in my heart. And I was like, yes, Scanlan did it. Scanlan did it.
The way right before he started singing, you started laughing gleefully, like you knew what was coming, and I was kind of like, okay. And then when he started singing the song, I was like, that's a master stroke. That's good.
Yeah. So I really like that, because again, they clearly showed that the Sphinx had the ability to throw up shields and just kind of understand with his vast knowledge what they could do. So this was something that was unpredictable, and this was something that shows you that sometimes you have to be creative and think outside the traditional box in order to overcome the obstacles. If you need to wound something, as I think I've heard you mention multiple times in jest, is that, you know, a man might punch you in the face, but a woman will punch you in your soul.
Oh, it was. I think it was.
Or was that one of the comedians you listened to?
Yeah, I think that was Louis C.K. He said a man can punch you and a bruise will heal, but a woman can like rend your heart and that shit stays with you forever.
Yeah, and so where that's a little bit misogynistic. The idea is that emotional pain will linger longer than physical pain, and being that Kamal Giori and Ossysa have been apart for centuries, if not eons at this point, being able to pluck that heartstring and be like, this is what you can't have right now because you guys are apart. It was just a beautiful moment, and I loved it. And so everybody in the rest of the party is suddenly saved, and they're like, what happened? How did this happen? Who did it? And then they find out Scanlan did it, and Kamal Giori, who now Scanlan's just calling Kama, is just like, oh yes, he's the most wise sage of all of existence.
And they're like, what the hell?
No, they were like, the fuck?
Yeah. It was brilliant. Like this episode so far this season was my favorite.
Oh, I loved it. It is so definitely my favorite as well.
Yeah, I like Scanlan.
I love Scanlan. You already knew that though.
Yeah, I like him, but like to me he was a little one-dimensional, but they're actually starting to peel back layers of that onion.
Yes, and that's matching beats of how it happened in game as well.
Yeah, I think this to me was like my favorite aspect of like D&D. It's cooperative storytelling. You have a GM that basically sets up a narrative, and then the players have to figure out a way around that. I thought it was a brilliant stroke of them. He's like, I can't attack you because I can't hit you physically, so I'll punch your brain.
Yeah,
I'll punch your heart, and and I thought that was so good.
Yeah.
And the song was beautiful too.
Oh no, and I like that they're giving Sam the opportunities to collaborate with other musicians and write original pieces of music for Scanlan, because that's what Sam Riegel does. That's where his joy is in his professional life is composing his music. Anytime that you hear an original piece of music for Critical Role, he has likely taken part in some sort of part of the process.
I haven't seen a lot of him, but I will say that man is unfairly talented and charming. So
he's very over the top, and I understand why he's not a favorite for a lot of people, because he is very much kind of like an over the top personality, but I love his characters.
Well, I think you said one time like when he gets the sword from defeating the Sphinx, and you're like, hopefully he uses that more than he did in the campaign. Yeah. And I didn't understand that at first, and you were like, he had that sword, and Matt was constantly trying to get him to pull it. And when you said that, I remembered you watching one of the YouTubes where Matt was like, well, you have that blade. And like Sam was like, well, yeah, I know. I have it, but I'm trying to figure out how to get around this. And Matt was like, you have the blade.
Yeah, Matt really kind of hammered home.
And you said Sam is an agent of chaos.
Yes. Sam played a halfling in a campaign. Halflings get to reroll ones. He would roll ones and be like, nah, I don't want to reroll that. The only time he rerolled a one was when the one was going to benefit the party. As soon as it would benefit the party that he would have crit failed, he was like, no, I'm going to reroll it.
See, I love that.
He's a bit of an agent of chaos, and I can tell it grates on some of the players' nerves, but I think he's trying to find the most. I think he's like he loves improv, and I think being able to go for the exact extreme of what we don't want to happen to be the next beat is something that he thrives on. That's just mine. But going back to the sword, the Sphinx grants him. Well, they ask the Sphinx about the vestiges again, and he actually says, no. Scanlan will be the one who tells you, and he grants Scanlan a vestige called Mythcarver. It's what looks to be a giant blade that shrinks down to be gnome size. I believe it was a long sword in game, but it could have been a short sword. But when he gets it, he doesn't have to go through some of the same trials that Vax has been going through with the armor, apparently, and he sees visions of two vestiges. The first is in a realm that is just vivid and bright in color and wildlife. Mm-hmm. And it then leads to a tree in what looks to be like some sort of like just gnarled wooden old oak or some sort. And it has a bow. Mm-hmm. And the bow's name is Fenthris, just so you know. And then it also shows the city of, I believe, Westruun, although it doesn't, I think, fully show it. And it shows a bunch of Goliath there, and in there is some gauntlets on one of them that are glowing across the knuckles, and those are the Titanstone knuckles. So now they know the location of two vestiges, the vague location. But before they could really try to get more information, maybe from Kama, or just maybe utilize Mythcarver further to see if maybe they can get a little bit more insight, Umbrasyl shows up. Because apparently, during all of this, and I think, neglected to mention it in some of the previous ones, Anna Ripley had been talking to Umbrasyl's agents up in Westruun and had basically been scrying on Vox Machina and giving them updates. So he now knew they had at least one vestige, that they were seeking more information on the others. So he kind of shows up to, like, crash the party. He attempts to steal Mythcarver, kind of succeeds, and then starts to go into like this huge fight with everyone. At first, he almost kidnaps Scanlan in the process too, but that's Kama's buddy, and he was not about to let his favorite musician be taken away by a black dragon. So he goes tail to tail, and I think he learned what the meaning of pain was. So that's what I was going to say. That dude had a big day. He went from, I've never experienced pain, to one of the greatest pains of like having your heart attacked, and which is one of the deepest pains. And then he got rocked. And he ultimately gives his life to save Scanlan.
Yes, which was great. It was beautiful.
Yeah.
But like the animation of that fight
was great.
Oh my God.
I love how they've kind of blended the fact that like the dragons and sphinxes have kind of been more CG, right, and then you have more of the traditional art and animation with the rest of the cast. So you kind of have a blend of like traditional anime with CG graphics, because the CG graphics, where you could tell they're CG, they've been blending well into the stuff.
It's not distracting.
Yeah.
It doesn't.
The first time I've noticed it, it was a little distracting, but then it blends so well that once it starts moving around, you don't notice it.
Yeah, but like that whole fight, oh my God, it shows you why dragons are fucking gross.
I know.
Like
I love it.
When he does the tail smash on one of them, when the poison fills up the room and the Sphinx like flapped his wings to like basically push the acid cloud back. Like I loved every little bit of that. And I hate to be like, oh, he's using a wing buffet to push back the acid cloud. No, that's...
It was great. It was great. The
fantastic counters.
They're playing fast and loose with traditional rules because they are no longer bound by the rules. They can make things look more cinematic for the sake of being cinematic. They don't have to be like, well, that's not within the scope of the game. That's not within the scope of the rules. It's like, no, this is our show. If we want to make it more cinematic, and it wouldn't have worked per the rules, who cares? Let's let it roll. So we do get to see Grog utterly shine though in this fight with the dragon. I think if they had given him enough time, I'm not sure Grog wouldn't have won.
Well, yeah, no.
Craven's Edge was really giving him that edge.
Well, it's like, so just speaking in D&D terms, when Grog attacked it the first time and the blade was glancing over the armor and then he found that small little niche and it like dug in. Like to me, it was like, okay, Grog, you have 150 hit points. Dragon goes and hits you for 130. Then he did a big hit to the dragon. It's like, okay, you heal 90. Okay, the dragon goes and hit you for 80. And then he would cut it again, and it's like, okay, you heal for 100. So it was like he was seesawing back and forth.
And he was. But, I mean, I feel like he was healing. The dragon wasn't, and he was giving that dragon... He was putting him on the ropes.
But it's like, I felt like that's where he lost his wisdom save. Where it's like the sword was drinking some of that sweet dragon blood, and was just like, get back in there.
Yeah.
And he was like all too eager to be like, yeah.
Well, and you have to keep in mind, he's also barbarian, so he's got a rage. And then he had taken the berserker subtype, so he had the frenzy rage. Mm-hmm. So he is more prone to failing will saves at that point. Mm-hmm. So it makes it more difficult when he gets that weapon to go, let's is it the weapon or is this just Grog being Grog? That's why I think it was so hard at first for them to determine, is this Grog being Grog or is this something affecting Grog? Because he is a berserker. He does go into rages. He could go into a murder spree like that without Craven's Edge. So... but it's clearly when he stabs Pike.
I think first he sweeps her out the way. She's like, we've got to go. And he's just like, move. And then I think... She
gets back in the way and he was going to lunge forward. And it's not an intentional stabbing.
Oh, no.
I don't even think Craven's Edge pushed him to stab her. I think it was an unintentional... He was going to go for it and she stepped in the way as he was going to lunge forward again and just happened to get... on the pointy end of the stick.
Yeah, it was, well, I mean, again, it would reinforce Nick's assumption that full plate is basically made of paper.
Yes, totally was.
Because he did not attack, he did not lunge, all he did was move forward. She stepped in the path, and it basically skewered her.
Paper mail, yeah.
So.
And then when that happens, it does snap Grog out of his frenzy, out of his bloodlust, and... at that time, Keyleth is trying to, looks like, put on a ritual to plane shift. That's what it read to me. It's some sort of teleport, and it's not a tree, so I can only assume at this point it would be a plane shift, because he did just show her learning that spell. And they rush over there, and just as the spell's about to go off, because she's rushing it, so she's already... disconcerted over the fact that she's having to rush the spell, and I understand the uncertainty in that moment. Because they're being harried, and the dragon slams into them, and I get Harry Potter flashbacks of the apparition that goes awry in Deathly Hallows Part 1, where Hermione has to suddenly apparate, and somebody tried to grab her, and she screws up Ron's arm.
Oh, he gets splinched?
He gets splinched. I had kind of horrors of that as the dragon slammed into that. That kind of gave me a little bit of a flashback to that. And you see as they are... traveling through the realms, you see Scanlan, Pike, and Grog get shifted off away from the rest of the party. So they split the party again, Lance.
Never split the party.
And you get left off with Keyleth, Percy, Vax, and Vex in what can only be described as the Fey Realm, as they're calling it. But it's absolutely gorgeous, and it did look just like the place that Scanlan had seen that Fenthras was at, so most likely that's where they'll end up going.
And then maybe the other three are heading towards the gauntlets, maybe?
Or the other three are... I don't know, because everybody was there in the Fey Realm.
Well...
So when in the campaign, they were all there. Well, Pike might not have been there, but Ashley missed a good chunk of campaign 1.
I don't know if bards get a lot of healing.
They do. They get some, though.
Okay, well, Pike's fucked. Because I don't imagine he uses a lot of healing spells. And I think he ended up probably cashing in a lot of his spells, like, with the fight with the Sphinx. And
Scanlan didn't use any of his magic.
So you think that was a performance check?
That was a performance check.
Well, if it was a nat 20.
Yeah.
Because, like, it's...
And I also think, I mean, he might have cast a couple of like illusion spells to help augment the performance, but he had seeming. That's only one spell if he did that, you know. Or he might have cast like major illusion or something of the sort. It's possible he used some magic, but he wouldn't have used a lot. And in the campaign, if he healed anybody, he healed Pike.
Well, it's...
Sam always had Scanlan heal Pike. If Pike needed healing, he knew that if she went down, they were screwed. and where Keyleth could heal and he could heal. Pike was the better healer of the three of them. They healed Pike.
Yeah, it's a bard. So I imagine when I know you said the fight didn't go down exactly like that, but it almost to me is that old trope of D&D where it's the bard where he's like, I seduce the Sphinx.
Yeah, kind of.
Okay, roll for it. Okay, well, he's moved by your words, but he's not going to do you.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, this episode, again, it's going to sound like we're being paid by Critical Role, but like I am thoroughly, this is one of the best animated shows on TV right now. They're putting money into the project, and you can tell. Mm-hmm. And they are going to suffer from success because they're doing something they love, and you can tell.
Yeah.
And they're doing it for the fans, but they're also putting together something that the uninitiated can like sit and look and just enjoy.
Yes.
Because that fight at the end, dude, I had tingles.
Yeah. It was a good fight.
It was amazing, and it was amazingly drawn. Again, Titmouse, bravo.
So, any standout scene or character apart from what you've already discussed?
The fight.
The fight. I figured.
The fight between the Sphinx and the dragon was that was epic. Super epic. The way he was like doing the blocking, the flying, the tackle to the ground, the way they were utilizing their natural abilities to like get around certain things. It was just good. The realization that the Sphinx had never felt pain, and then it's like, oh, you're gonna get a master class in pain today.
Yeah.
Because he went from I've never felt pain to oh fuck I'm dead. So he had a big day. That fella had a big day.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah.
I did feel sad though when Kamalji already died.
Yeah, I mean, he doesn't get to see his girl, and he gave the message, tell her I love her.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's it's just gonna make that kill on the dragons all the sweeter.
Yeah, this is very much true.
And then Scanlan got his sword taken.
Yeah, Scanlan totally lost Mythcarver already. But then again, like I said, Sam didn't use Mythcarver hardly ever. Like, I forgot he had Mythcarver for most of the game until, like, they're well past the Chroma Conclave, and they keep on bringing that up because I think Matt was trying to help Sam get it leveled up because he gave them like abilities, like if they met certain requirements in game, the artifact would level up to the next level, and Sam never used it, so it wasn't leveling up, and it was just like you have, and then every now and then Sam might make disparaging comments like I got this sword that it's useless to me, and Matt was like I'm trying to help you.
Well, I mean, give him a loot then. I think that was the player basically going, you could have given me like a magical loot.
Yeah.
But no, I got a sword.
Yeah.
So,
But he was a bard, and it was a sword that gives, basically, it kind of went back to the whole idea that bardic knowledge. It was the bardic knowledge blade. How 3.5 Pathfinder, they had a bardic knowledge score that let them, like, oh, if you're a bard, you can just roll any kind of knowledge check because you might have heard a story about it. That blade was bardic knowledge.
Scanlan does not strike me as the person who knows things. He strikes me as the person who likes to sing about things that he sees, but ultimately uses it to get in people's pants.
That much is true, yes, but he actually knows a lot.
Oh, I'm not saying he's a slouch when it comes to the knowledge part.
But the idea is that a bard travels and you learn stories, or you talk to people and you hear stories, and bardic knowledge is that. And so Mythcarver is ideally the same idea, that you've traveled, that you're just basically getting a divinely inspired knowledge about stuff that would fall under the bardic knowledge. So, because I believe that Matt attempted to create these vestiges deliberately to benefit the players that they were going to.
Yeah, but like his character this season so far has just been, no, we can't do it, let someone else do it.
There's a reason for that, and I cannot discuss it.
I get it, and you've asked me off camera what I think about certain things, and like I said, I love that all the episodes are doing its thing to further the adventure, but at the same time, it's also kind of like character studies on why these people are the way they are. The last thing I wanted to add in real quick before we go any further is, well, no, I'll save it. The opening. I want to talk about the opening. Like, I want to talk. We'll save that for later on, because I made a revelation that I thought I was a pretty smart guy for making the connection of something in the opening, but I also realized that if I realized it, people probably realized it a long time ago too. So,
If you want to discuss it, go ahead.
okay. So the opening, I really love the opening of the show as well, because it shows like all the characters kind of like in their. I asked Amber, did these guys get together at level 1? To which I think you said they started the game around level 8. Presumably.
They played a home game for a very long time. I don't know what level that home game started on. They started live streaming around level 8.
Okay, to me, the way their characters have talked in the past is they've had separate adventures. So it's like Pike and Grog were a team, Vex and Vax were a team, Percy was a loner, Scanlan was a loner, and Keyleth were loners. The thread that moves through the opening, I believe, is the thread of fate that binds them together as a party, because it shows them doing their own thing, and then it seems like they're together. And like, I thought that was neat, because even the opening is kind of like its own story too. And I like how that thread moving through to what it was leading to is their ultimate destiny, which you said you have an assumption of what's going on with the very, very end of it, but you won't tell me, which is fine.
Yes, I can't discuss it.
But yeah, that's basically the storyline that's weaving through all of them that pulls them together. And it's the reason the camera's focused on them and they're the heroes. But yeah, I just thought that was neat. I don't know who thought of like doing that, because I've seen the other openings they put on their other shows, the stuff on YouTube, which is neat. But like...
They hired an animation studio to animate a song that Sam wrote for Campaign 2. That's where that one came from. And that's why it's very deliberately. The lyrics are very specific, more towards Campaign 2. And then the opening is obviously specifically with their characters. Campaign 1, they toyed with several different openings. And then they kind of did like a live action-y one for a while there. And it's fine, but... it's not the greatest.
Our kids,
because they're basically cosplaying their own characters, and some of the characters look better than others.
I like the opening where they were like all nerds coming over to each other.
I love that. I love that one.
Yeah, that was the one I really liked. I don't know what game that was.
That was Campaign 2. They started that one for Campaign 2. When they split from Geek and Sundry is when they changed.
Okay.
Because to Campaign 2, they split off from Geek and Sundry to form. Basically, that's when Critical Role became its own thing. Right. And then in Campaign 3, they've gone through 2 opening credits so far, but none featuring their characters yet. But they have their Thursday night song.
And it's okay.
Yeah.
But that's another rah-rah. It's Thursday night. Let's get together and kill some imaginary dragons.
Yeah,
so.
it's fun, and it's very much something that they can use for any show that would be aired on their Thursday night programming. But I miss the touch of specificity that the Critical Role song for Campaign 2 that they wrote and then animated had. I liked how that one felt very specific and felt more tailored specifically for the campaign. And they're far enough now in their current campaign where they could make that change. I just don't know if they will.
Well, put down in the comments what you think, like the opening. I think it's neat. Like, there's no wasted animation in the show. It seems like all of it leads to something, and it's information about the show. So if you could write down in the comments what you think the opening's about, or you could just write, it's just an opening, you fucking nerd, to like move on. So that'd be great. Thanks. And back to you.
I don't think I have anything more.
No? Yeah, I don't have anything more. Keep up the good work. The show's great. One other thing I'd like to add real quick. Don't compare the campaign that you're in to this show. This show is like epic, high adventure from beginning to end. Mm-hmm. Every situation is like a party wiper. You know, like it's the show is drawn and amped up to be that way. So like if you're like, man, like we fought some kobolds last game and like, you know, got like a Fabergé egg. It's fine. That's what it is. Because like I've asked you, like, you know, did they do this? And you're like, no, it's kind of like a culmination of like this, and this. Mm-hmm. So, but you know, you can't. The show would run for 83 seasons if they tried to animate everything they did on the tabletop. But You knew that already. So, moving on to the ending. You have anything else? Okay. All right. Well, thanks for joining us.
All right. We'll see you next time.
And remember,
And remember what?
never split the party.
Never split the party. Okay, sorry.
And if you're ever in a dungeon and there's a fork, always go left.
Good night.
Bye.